This is a presentation about the tweens in Animate. Animate has 3 different tweens, and I'm going to describe them and show you how to use them. Let's make a movie first. File, New. And we're going to make a standard size, 640 by 480. Frame rate, 24 frames a second. Click on Create. I'm going to get my timeline out of the way. I'm going to move my stage over and up a little bit. I have my timeline. And make sure you have Properties and Library open. You do that from Window, Properties, and Library. That's where you find them. So I want to have both open. We're going to be using the libraries for our symbols and the properties to make changes in our shapes and in our symbols. So I want to make 4 layers. You can just click on this little plus icon right here so you can make additional layers. My first layer I'm going to call background. My second layer, I'm going to make this into a shape underscore tween. That'll be our shape tween layer. The next layer is going to be the classic underscore tween. And then the last layer will be our motion underscore tween layer. So I'm going to have a background layer, a shape tween layer that will do our tween for shape in, classic tween layer for just classic tween, and motion tween layer for just the motion tween. There's a difference between these different types of tweens. The shape tween is used just for shapes, shape tween. And you have to have shapes, you cannot use symbols. It can change things as far as shapes. That will be the major change that we'll make. We'll also change the size a little bit and the color. With the classic tween here, that can use only symbols, not shapes. Motion can use only symbols, not shapes. With classic, we're going to change the size. We're going to fade and then bring that classic tween back up, and we're going to move it across the stage. The motion tween is a little more sophisticated and is more recent than the shape and the classic tween. You won't have to add the keyframes as you do in the classic and the shape tween. Those will be automatically added as you make changes. I'll show you that. And we're going to use the sophisticated path change with the motion tween. The motion tween allows you to see your path and then modify the path with the selection tool, which is what we will do. We're going to start out with our background, and we're going to add shapes for our background that then we're going to put our tweens in. I'm going to use just a plain gray using the rectangle tool. I'm going to make a rectangle shape on my stage, this being the stage. And when you go to Properties and you select with your selection tool your shape, you'll see that now the property of this is a shape. With that shape selected, go up to Edit, Copy, deselect it, and paste. And pull that up here and do deselect, edit, paste again. And we have 3 rectangles. So we're going to put our tweens in here so that we have a separate space for each of the tweens. I have the background done. I'm going to go to frame 70 to extend my background from frame 1 to 70. And I'm going to, with my mouse, do a right click So I get this menu, and we'll use this menu several times, and go up to Insert Frame. Notice that this is different from this. This is just a regular frame stop. It allows me to extend my frames out. That is called a keyframe. That little black circle is a keyframe. I'm going to lock my background, and I'm going to start with the shape tween. The shape tween is used with shapes to make one shape turn into another shape. Let's first put our shapes up here. So we have a shape, a classic, and a motion shape. So we can change each of these for our tweens. And this first one, I'm going to use a rectangle for my shape tween. And I think I'll make that an orange color. So let's make it a bright orange. Maybe, how about that? Right there. Okay. And we will select this, make sure that this is not locked, that I'm on that right layer, and I'm going to select my shape, and let's see, what do I have here? Okay, there. For some reason, if something doesn't act right and it acts like you can't make a shape, then just reselect your frame. Sometimes it has a problem. Drag out a shape. My first shape for my shape tween layer is a square, an orange square. In my classic tween layer, I'm going to make a circle, and I'm going to make it purple. So purple like that. Select, and notice with that little X, that little triangle there, I have other options here for shapes. I'm going to choose oval and make a purple oval. And then click on the motion tween layer. So each of these are in their own layer. Select the motion tween layer, and this one, motion tween, I'm going to make kind of a lighter orange color, and I'll make this into a polystar. Oh, like this, maybe. Okay, and I want to move that. Using my selection tool, I'm going to select that shape and move it down. Okay, so now I have the motion tween layer, and if I turn off, you'll see the eyeball here. I'm going to just check that I have them in the right, on the right layer. My motion tween layer, my classic layer here, my purple circle, and my shape tween should be that orange square. I turn that off and on. Okay. The first one I want to work with is this, our shape tween. So I'm going to lock and turn these off. My background I'm keeping locked. Motion tween, actually I wanted the shape tween. So I'm going to use my shape tween up here first for the first change. Go to the shape tween layer, click on frame 5, and right click your mouse and choose insert a keyframe. Then go to frame, let's say frame 25. Select that and right click and insert another keyframe. So these 3 keyframes all have the same object in them. I'm going to select that last keyframe here, and I'm going to move my shape over to the other side, and I want to select a different color. I'm going to choose, let's choose blue. Deselect. Now, I'm going to distort this, and I'm going to use my selection tool to distort it. If I have this selected with my selection tool, I can't make the changes that I want. It just selects this so I can move the selection. If I deselect and come back, notice that little curve there? That allows me to make a change in my shape. There. So we've changed the color and we've changed the shape. But when I look at this, it just jumps. That's because we haven't added our tween yet. Select any of these frames. Doesn't matter which one. Do a right click and create a shape tween. Now it'll show you the animation. So we'll go through and change it to blue. So the shape changes gradually and the color changes. I'm going to extend this last frame out to frame 70 just by adding a key frame right here. So select frame 70, right click, and insert a frame. Now I'm going to lock this and turn that off and go to the classic tween, and we'll do a classic tween. The classic tween is different from, and I want to turn that, I want to make sure I'm here and that I have, bring your playback head back to frame 1, turn off the eyeball so that you can see. I had the eyeball on to make it invisible, and I had the lock on. Make sure that the lock is off and the eyeball allows you to see your image. Select the image, go up to modify, convert to symbol, and we're going to change the name to classic to match our tween as classic. Select movie clip, registration in the center. Now look in the properties. This is not a shape, it's a movie clip. If I go to library, there's our movie clip symbol, our shape, and it shows you here that I named it classic, and that little icon is the icon for a movie clip symbol, which you also see in this properties. If I were to select our shape, you will see that that's different. It's still a shape. It's not a symbol. So let's turn that off again and lock it. Go back to our classic tween. Okay. Now I'm going to select frame 20 and insert a keyframe. Right click, go up to insert keyframe, go to frame 40, select frame 40, right click, insert a keyframe. This is where I'm going to have my tween animation. This will be the same from here to here. It's going to remain the same, but this is where I'm going to insert my classic tween. I can select any of these frames, right click, and create a classic tween. Now notice, see how this shape tween has that arrow? That means that there's a tween in there. There isn't one here. And I've just inserted another tween here. This one's orange, which is a shape tween color. This one's purple, which is a classic tween color. If I select that last frame, keyframe, and drag my circle over to the side, that will be my first animation. And I want to add a couple other types of changes in here so you see other things that are available. I'm going to select frame, let's say frame 24, and add a keyframe. With a classic tween, you have to add a keyframe every time you want to make a change. Okay, we have filters here. And we have color effects. So let's use color effects. When you open the color effects up, it says none. go over to the side here where the arrow is, click on it, and let's go to alpha. I'm going to bring the color effect down to 0. Then I'm going to select frame 28 and right-click and insert another keyframe and bring alpha back up to 100. So we're going from here, it starts to move, it disappears, and then it comes back again. So that is our filter change. You can use filters. Color effects. That's our color effects and the alpha change. And let's see. Let's use a transform. So click in frame 31, right click, and let's insert another keyframe. Go to your free transform tool. Select that. You see you have a bounding box here with changes. When you roll over close, you get the rotation. You could rotate or you could change the size. And I'm going to, let's change the size this way, vertically. And then I'm going to click on frame 34, right click, so that I can insert another keyframe, and I'm going to re-expand the size. And let's do one more change. Select frame 37, right click, insert a keyframe, and this time let's use a filter. We used color effects with the alpha. Let's close that. Filters is open. You have to get the filters, you have to click on this little plus. And I'm going to use a glow of red. And I'm going to add this to 30 and change both the blur X and blur Y so that I have a wider blur here. And then I'm going to click on 40, which it goes back then to our established keyframe here. We established all of these, this 1, 2, 3 keyframes as that purple circle. Now let's see what it does. So it disappears, it comes back. That's the color effect. Then it changes size. That is the free transform tool. And then it gets a glow and loses the glow. The glow is the filter change. So let's extend this out to frame 70 by selecting frame 70, right click, insert a frame. Now our last change we're going to do, I'm going to turn Classic Tween, the view visibility off, and I'm going to lock it. I'm going to go up to the motion tween layer, turn on the visibility, turn off the lock, bring the playhead back to frame 1, which is where I have my image. The motion tween and the classic tween cannot use shapes. I selected this right now, it's still a shape. I have to make that a symbol. So with that shape selected, I go up to modify, convert to symbol, and I'm going to call this motion. It's a movie clip with the center register. Click OK. And you can do different things with the motion tween, the same as you did with the classic. But the thing that's different, that's really unique about this, is that you can make a path and change the path. So that's the strength of the motion tween. Let's set up a first keyframe at 30. Now I'm doing that so that my animation will not start, my motion tween animation won't start until frame 30. So this image is going to be the same as this image, all the way from frame 1 to 30. I'm going to go to frame 70 and right click and just insert a frame. So this is just a frame, it's not a keyframe. That's a keyframe. That's not a keyframe. You do this only in a motion tween. I can select any of these frames to make this a motion tween from here to frame 70, from 30 to 70. Right click and create a motion tween. And it looks like nothing's happened, but now if I select this last frame 70 and I grab my symbol and I move it over to the side, you see these little dots? That each dot is a frame. That starts at frame 30 and that is frame 70. So when we drag through, we have that motion tween. The nice thing about this is I don't have to keep it where it is. Deselect. Make sure you don't have this selected like that. Deselect it. Don't use the transform. Use this simple little selection tool. And you can grab this end and move it wherever you want. But then look, when I come back and I get in close, I can drag this so it loops. I can grab that and move it back around, and I can loop that back up like this. So it changes that motion path exactly the way I want it. Now look at our path. There's our shape. There's our path. That is the strength of the motion tween. I'm going to add one other thing here so you can see another thing that this can do. Let's select frame 35, and I'm not going to add a keyframe. I'm going to go to Object, and I'm going to add Color Effects, Tint. Look what this did. It added the keyframe without me adding it. I'm going to click on this tint and change this to there. Let's see, there. I'm going to pull that. You can always pull up the strength of the tint. Then notice this starts out as that orange. Then it goes to green. Then I'm going to go to frame 40. I haven't added a keyframe. Go back to Object. This time my tint is going to go to, let's go to rosy color. Then I'm going to go to frame 45, back to the Object tab in Properties, select my color. I'm going to go to yellow, okay, maybe even stronger yellow. And then I'm going to go to frame 50, back to Object in Properties. I'm changing my object, still color effects, and I'm going to now change to blue, and then 55, Object and Properties, and I'm going to change to kind of a red, a little brighter, more strength of the red here. Okay, so you can bring up the strength of red or green or blue also. And that is what I'm going to do. So it kind of flashes through all these different colors. Now this last, notice that these keyframes are different from this keyframe. The black circle keyframe is what I have to physically put into. I have to click, right click, and insert a keyframe. In the motion tweens, when you just select a frame and make a change, it self-inserts a keyframe. And those keyframes are, the automatic keyframes are diamond shape. So that's the change. So in this last keyframe, I'm going to change this back to kind of an orange and bring the tint down there. So now let's turn everything back on, lock everything, go to frame 1, and I'm just going to scrub through because we are at 24 frames a second and it goes very quickly. I want you to be able to see what changes here. And it first changes only in our shapes. Then we get to the classic tween changes, and this starts to move. And remember, we use the alpha. We use a shape size change with that free transform. We put a glow in, which is the filter, and then our motion tween allows us to control our path, this being the path, with our selection tool, and we change the color with the object. When we went to object and we went to the color. So those are the 3 different types of tweens in Animate: motion, classic, shape. Shape uses only shapes, but you have a variety of different things you can do with the shapes. The strength of the shape tween is that you can change from a circle to a letter, or a letter to a square. You can change from one shape to another. Classic tween and motion both have to use symbols. And classic tween, if you like adding the keyframes, that is one way of working. The motion tween adds the keyframes for you as you make changes. The strength of the motion tween, different from the classic, you can do all the same changes, but with this motion tween, you can also control your motion path. And that is the 3 different tweens for Animate. Thank you for watching.